There are moments in life when we meet someone and instantly feel the quiet pull of possibility. Something soft, something unspoken, something that slowly begins to reshape the way we see them and the way we see ourselves. And yet, behind every deep connection, behind every relationship that ever becomes meaningful, there is a journey, a series of stages, a psychological progression that every bond goes through, whether we notice it or not. The first stage is simple. It's the moment when two people recognize each other, when curiosity flickers, when something inside says, "I want to know more." It doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's the smallest shift, a glance, a smile, a sense of familiarity you can't quite explain. Attraction may begin quietly, but it is always honest. It's the beginning of an unfolding story. Then comes the second stage, the deeper one, the space where connection grows roots, where interest becomes affection, and affection becomes something more. This stage feels warm, hopeful, alive. You begin to understand each other's rhythms. You learn how the other thinks. You see the world through their eyes. And without meaning to, you open parts of yourself you normally keep hidden. This is where love has the potential to grow, not through perfection, not through performance, but through emotional truth. And yet, even the strongest connections can shift. Life changes, people evolve, sometimes to paths that once aligned begin to drift apart. And when a relationship reaches its final stage, the stage of letting go, it doesn't always end with anger or blame. Sometimes it ends with silence, reflection, or understanding. Breakups are not always failures. Often, they are transitions, reminders that growth sometimes requires release. But the space between these stages, the distance between I don't know you and I can't stop thinking about you, is where most people get stuck. So many wonder, how does someone go from indifferent to curious, from uninterested to connected? And the answer isn't a trick, a tactic, or a game. It's psychology, human behavior, and emotional presence. Let me tell you a story. Many years ago, a young statesman found himself facing a political opponent who disliked him intensely. Nothing he did changed the man's attitude. No kindness, no charm, nothing seemed to soften the tension between them. And then, one day, the young man tried something unexpected. He learned that his opponent owned a rare book, a piece of history that very few people ever had access to. With a gentle, respectful tone, he wrote to the man requesting to borrow it. The opponent was surprised, but agreed. The book arrived. The young man read it, cared for it, and returned it with a warm letter of gratitude. What happened next was even more surprising. The hostility disappeared. The once cold opponent became friendly, respectful, even supportive. The simple act of asking for a favor transformed the relationship completely. And that young statesman was Benjamin Franklin. From this moment, psychology uncovered a powerful truth. When we do something kind for someone, we convince ourselves, subconsciously, that we must like them. Because we do not invest effort into people we dislike, the mind rewrites its own story to stay consistent. This became known as the Benjamin Franklin effect, a psychological principle showing that connection grows not from receiving, but from participating. But the important lesson here is not about asking for favors. It's about understanding the deeper force beneath it, a principle far more powerful and far more honest, the principle of emotional investment. From childhood, many of us were taught a very simple and very harmful idea. If you want someone to like you, give more, try more, do more. Be endlessly available. Be endlessly helpful. Be endlessly understanding. But life doesn't work that way. And relationships certainly don't. The truth is this: we value what we invest in. We care about what we grow. We connect with what we nurture, not because we're calculating, but because the heart protects what it puts energy into. This is why the most stable bonds are not built on one person overextending themselves, but on mutual participation, mutual curiosity, mutual effort. It's not about asking someone to prove themselves or withholding kindness. It's about balance. It's about self-respect. It's about understanding that affection grows strongest when it flows both ways, naturally and willingly. And yet, so many people fall into the same pattern, giving endlessly, hoping affection will rise from sacrifice, saying yes when they want to say no, prioritizing someone who hasn't shown that same priority in return, and slowly, without noticing, they lose themselves in the process. But real attraction, the kind that lasts, doesn't grow from overgiving. It grows from authenticity. It grows from presence. It grows from confidence. It grows from the courage to show who you are without bending yourself out of shape for validation. And one of the most powerful forms of confidence is the ability to maintain healthy boundaries. Most people misunderstand boundaries. They think boundaries push people away. But in truth, boundaries create clarity. They create respect. They distinguish genuine connection from one-sided attachment. When you honor your own time, your own energy, your own emotional space, others begin to honor it too. Because in the psychology of relationships, availability shapes perception. It's not about pretending to be busy. It's about genuinely valuing your life enough to not compress yourself into someone else's schedule. It's about living with purpose, direction, and emotional balance. When your life is full, not of noise, but of meaning, your attention becomes valuable. Your presence becomes rare, and rarity is naturally attractive. This doesn't mean being distant. It means being whole. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine someone reaches out, asking if you're free on a certain day. You're not. And there's no resentment, just reality. When you express that calmly and genuinely, something interesting happens. Your time is framed as something you manage intentionally, not something thrown around carelessly. And with every interaction, that understanding deepens. People don't admire perfection. They admire direction. They admire the quiet confidence of someone who respects themselves. And one of the most powerful signals of self-respect is the ability to walk away from conversations, meetings, or interactions with grace. Not abruptly, not coldly, just simply, knowing when enough has been shared. Knowing that connection doesn't need to be stretched thin to be meaningful. Leaving at the right moment creates something subtle and deeply human. It creates curiosity. It creates appreciation. It creates anticipation for the next moment of connection. And anticipation is one of the foundations of attraction. But here is something even more important. People are drawn to those who seem emotionally grounded, not empty, not unavailable, just steady. Someone who carries a life outside of the conversation. Someone who has passions, friendships, goals, and purpose. Someone who is not waiting to be chosen, but choosing themselves every day because purpose is magnetic. Stability is magnetic. Peace is magnetic. But purpose doesn't need to be loud. It can be quiet. It can be gentle. It can be the kind of purpose that simply comes from wanting to grow, wanting to understand yourself, wanting to build a life that feels meaningful. When someone senses that energy, the energy of a person who is moving forward, thoughtfully and intentionally, they can feel it. And that feeling is rare enough to stand out. But attraction is not built only through strength. It is also built through warmth and kindness. When it's genuine, not performative, is one of the most powerful emotional languages we have. It softens tension. It creates connection. It opens space for vulnerability. And vulnerability, the gentle kind, builds trust. The key is balance. Warmth with boundaries. Kindness with self-respect. Openness with clarity. Presence with stability. This balance creates emotional harmony. The state where someone feels drawn to you not because you're trying to impress them, but because being around you feels natural, comfortable, and sincere. And that brings us to the heart of this entire journey. The most attractive thing you can offer anyone is a sense of emotional safety. Not by being perfect, not by being endlessly available, not by bending your boundaries, but by being real, by being consistent, by being grounded in who you are. There is one final shift that transforms the way connections unfold. A shift so simple, and yet so powerful, that it changes everything. It is the shift from asking, "How do I make someone like me?" to asking, "Who am I when I am fully myself?" And who feels naturally drawn to that? Because when you live in alignment with your truth, your values, your boundaries, your purpose, the right people don't need to be convinced. They recognize you. They resonate with you. They gravitate toward you not because you reached for them, but because something in you feels familiar, safe, authentic. Real attraction is never forced. It grows in the quiet places, in the space between confidence and compassion, boundaries and presence, individuality and connection. And when you carry that balance, people feel it. They feel your self-respect. They feel your emotional clarity. They feel the energy of someone who doesn't chase, but chooses. Someone who doesn't cling, but connects. Someone who doesn't perform, but simply exists with honesty in a world full of noise. Authenticity becomes rare, and rare things become unforgettable. So remember this. The most powerful way to be valued is to value yourself first. The most powerful way to be chosen is to choose a life that feels meaningful. And the most powerful way to be loved is to be someone who loves with intention, not desperation. Because when you build a life that feels full, a heart that feels grounded, and a presence that feels calm, the right connections will always find their way to you. Not through pressure, not through persuasion, but through resonance. And the connections born from resonance are the ones that last in the end. The question isn't, how do I make someone see my worth? The real question is, have I learned to see it myself? And once you do, the world begins to respond in ways you never expected.